This is the latest health update after the recent motorcycle adventure. I'm still in a bit of recovery mode after the month-long two-wheeled adventure I took where I scattered Barron's ashes everywhere that Sunshine's ashes were scattered over a decade ago, completing my last obligation in this life. Because there were some events and observations and results of the trip, health-wise, I figured it was a good time to do a health update, which also hopefully minimizes the how you feel and how's your health text, which frankly I'm just going to ignore anyway. Having not spent more than 2-3 hours at a time in the saddle for the last really 11 years since I did the cross-country record ride, doing 5,000 miles in a month's time on a bike would not be recommended by any of my doctors in my condition, or anybody with any sense of self-preservation greater than my own, which is a pretty low bar these days, think limbo level. It was a poor decision to make in almost every way possible, except for the one that mattered most, and that's why I did it. The most important thing was that I wanted to do it, and it was worth the risk, and that's really all that mattered. That first day, 9 hours in the saddle to get from San Antonio to New Orleans was a bit ambitious and about did me in. The Camelback holder inside the helmet wasn't working right. It made it hard to actually use it, so even though I was thinking I was being smart planning ahead with hydration, I showed up severely dehydrated to New Orleans. I rode through rain and then the sun would come out and create a 100-degree sauna, so my body's ability to regulate temperature was completely jacked up by the time I got to the hotel. I expected the lower back and the tailbone to be pain points because they have been for years now due to all the motorcycle riding in my youth. However, what I didn't expect is a pinched nerve back here from 15 years ago. It hasn't bothered me, but it sure did on this ride. So I was fighting that the whole time, using Icy Hot at every gas stop, trying to keep that regulated. By the time I actually got into the streets of New Orleans, I started having pretty concerning chest pains. And I thought, this is how it ends. Me laying next to my motorcycle, probably getting pickpocketed in downtown New Orleans. Fortunately, that didn't happen, so I at least made it safely to the hotel. Once I got to the hotel, I pissed bright red blood again, which is bad because I'm still anemic and having an internal blood leak isn't gonna help anything. I had taken a shower, and after that I was shivering so bad because my temps were all screwed up. I had to crank the temp up to 75 or so in the room to keep from shaking. And that was all just day one. By Daytona Beach, I'd already gained a few pounds, which makes it harder for me to breathe. And that meant that I was actually waking up again in the middle of the night, gasping for air, which is really bad. And then you compound that with the fact that you're not getting a good night's sleep, makes the breathing even worse. By the time I actually got up and around to Colorado, where you now have the added factor of altitude with thinner air, that first day I tried walking down the hallway to the gym at the hotel. I got about 10 steps and thought I was going to pass out. I could not do it. That was a kind of a scary, bleak look into the future at my end of time. What it's going to look like is getting to the point where the breathing is so bad I can't even work out to make it better, and I'm gonna have to resort to just laying there and dealing with it. Now back in Texas, my breathing is better than it was in Colorado. However, it is definitely not what I would consider good. It's not even as good as it was before I left for the trip, even though I've been trying to shave the weight off, and I'm probably about where I was when I left, but the breathing is still a problem. All that said, I stand by my decision to do it, and yes, it was worth it. Before I even went on the trip, I had to really ask myself, if this kills you, is it worth it? And the answer was, hell yeah. It was then, and even coming back and dealing with what I did and am, I still say that answer is a hell yes. And I had to ask that same question when I was trying to walk out to Sunshine's tree in the Rocky Mountains to put Baron's ashes, which was definitely not easy. Again, I had to ask myself, is this worth dying for? Hell yes. When I took his ashes up Enchanted Rock here in by Fredericksburg, Texas, I had to ask again, yes, it's worth, if that's the outcome, then it was worth it. And the only reason I even made it successfully out to her tree or up that rock was not because of athleticism, it was out of just sheer will. I found myself having to ask this question a lot more in the last couple years when I did my last track day at Circuit of the Americas on the S1000. Had to ask that question, is this worth dying for? And again, hell yes is the answer, and I'm so glad that I did one more day out there. Last week I saw Pantera for the first time. This Friday, 9 Inch Nails. And obviously I got mosh pit tickets for both, because if you're going to go in style. But again, with both of these things, you have to kind of ask yourself, is it worth dying for if that happens? Because at this point, with my health, just the walk up out of the pit to get to ground level is a nightmare, let alone the walk back to the car, depending on how far away you parked. But being in the mosh pit, it's pretty short. I don't last long down there like I used to, because I'm at the point where anything more exciting than a heated game of checkers is going to escalate my heart rate and cause me risk. Is it worth it? Hell yeah, or I wouldn't be doing it. And there are plenty other decisions that are maybe less risky, but you still have to evaluate. Is it worth getting up early and going to the gym every day? Is it worth not drinking or not eating desserts, or exercising as much as I do? If I want to go for a fast ride in the back roads, each of these things I have to make these little decisions with. And the way I kind of look at it is, if this is today and this is my end of life, my quality of life is going to start here and it's going to go down to there until some time of expiration. And that end of life could end up being here. It's hard telling, don't really know all that. But what I'm trying to do is maximize this quality of life now and really don't care about how long it lasts. So when I get questions from the doctor about, hey, we can put this device in your chest, a defibrillator, that in case you get out here and your heart stops, it'll kickstart it back so you get more time. And I said, no way. Why would I want more time at the worst quality of my life? That's stupid. There are things like the drugs that they tried to give me that made me feel horrible. And they said, yeah, but this will extend that life. And it would make this quality lower and make the line look more like this. And again, I said, hell no, I want as much quality as I can now. That's throwaway, that's just less suffering in my eyes. So eating well, exercising, just healthy habits in general, minimal stress and all that, that is absolutely worth it to me at this point, because it'll boost that quality of life. And really what a lot of it boils down to is just breathing capacity and what I'm able to do. Am I able to go for a hike? Am I able to go paddleboarding? Able to keep going to the gym? All those things need some kind of breath capacity, and it's sort of like you have to keep at it every day fighting for that breath. But if you start slacking, well, that line's going to look a lot more like this. And that's not what I want. Every day we all have to make a lot of decisions that have some impact one way or the other on our lives, some more than others, of course. I made a lot of decisions when I was younger that may not have affected me then, but they are causing this entire scenario. For example, the day before I left for the trip, the one doctor I had told me in his accent, he said, "Your liver is bad, bad, bad." And I said, well, I haven't drank in over 3 years. He said, well, you obviously did when you were younger, because you would have had to drink a bottle of alcohol a week for 5 years to get this bad. So, yeah, it's putting it mildly. But those decisions back then affected big picture now. That's why I have to make all these decisions about every day being super disciplined and living like a monk to try to keep what quality of life and length I have left. So where does all this leave me today? Still waiting for more labs to be done with the liver to see what's going on with that, or if there's anything they can do or what. That's less of a concern for me really than what the heart is, because since I'm still breathing worse now than I was before the trip, I will continue to lose the weight. But if I get down to say my ideal 200 and the breathing is still pretty bad, well, I'll need to go in and get another echo, because several things could happen. For one thing, the leaks, if you recall, my valve that had the leaks in the outside edge where they had to put the plugs in, something like that, to try to keep it sealed. I could have popped open another leak somewhere, which the good news is that would be fixable. They can go in and put another plug in. The bad news, it means that that's one step closer to that valve just floating in catastrophic failure. If the ejection fraction is just getting worse and worse, that means the heart is continuing to fail, and there's not really much you can do about that. The other thing that's actually could be really bad is if the valve is now seeing stenosis, where it's basically failing to open, and it already has shown mild stenosis. But remember, my last valve failed that way because it wouldn't open all the way. If that happens, I'm just kind of screwed, because they can't go in and put a new valve in like last time. And they also can't go shove one up inside there. It doesn't work. So there are several things that could be happening. I just need to start with eliminating the obvious, like, can I cut the weight if possible? Just as an example of how sensitive it is when you're riding the razor's edge like this. Last night, I didn't sleep well. I was waking up struggling to breathe. This morning, I weighed a whole 3 pounds more than yesterday. And yesterday, I felt pretty good. Slept pretty good the night before. Same with the night before that. So that gives you an idea why I'm so adamant about needing to be really disciplined about diet and exercise and maintaining that weight. The situation has obviously opened my eyes to really defining what's important, what's not, how important is it. I think when you assign stakes such as, do you want to do this so bad that it's worth dying for? That really forces you to put things in perspective of what's important and what's not, and how you want to spend your time. But by gaining that perspective, it helps make sure that I'm making the best decisions I can to ensure that I make the absolute best use of every day I get while I still can. Because ultimately, that's what's most important. If you haven't done so, please click the link below to subscribe, click the little bell for notifications, and live for today.